What if the reason you're exhausted isn't weakness, but overload? What if nothing is wrong with you, yet everything feels too heavy? What if your tiredness is trying to tell you the truth? You wake up already drained, not just in your body, but in your mind. The kind of tiredness sleep doesn't fix. You keep showing up, answering, functioning, but inside, something is quietly shutting down. Motivation doesn't reach you anymore. Advice feels distant. You're not dramatic, not broken, not lazy. You're simply worn down from carrying expectations, pressure, and invisible weight for too long. Stoic philosophy never judged this state. It was born inside it. Marcus Aurelius wrote about steadiness while facing war, illness, and loss, not comfort or ease. The Stoics didn't ask how to feel excited again, and they asked how to remain grounded when life becomes heavy. This video won't hype you up. It won't tell you to push harder or think positive. It's here to help you breathe, stand still, and regain your footing, quietly, without force. If you're tired of everything, stay, not to escape life, but to steady yourself inside it. 1. You're not lazy. You're mentally overloaded. You've probably told yourself this before. I'm just lazy. I've lost discipline. I should be doing more. Those thoughts sound convincing, especially in a culture that glorifies constant movement. But they're wrong. And believing them is one of the reasons you feel even more exhausted. Laziness is avoidance. What you're experiencing is overload. Mental overload happens when your mind has been asked to carry too many roles, too many expectations, too many unfinished loops, without rest or release. It's not that you don't want to act. It's that your internal system is running at capacity. Think about your day. You're not resting. You're recovering just enough to keep going. You're not choosing. You're reacting. You're not idle. You're managing invisible weight, to messages to reply to, responsibilities you can't drop, standards you feel pressured to meet, versions of yourself you're expected to perform. None of this looks like laziness. It looks like someone who has been on for too long. Stoic philosophy understood this deeply. The Stoics never equated worth with constant output. In fact, they warned against a life spent reacting endlessly to demands that weren't chosen. Seneca wrote that people are not short on time. They are distracted, scattered, and overcommitted to things that drain their inner strength. And that word matters. Strength. True strength, in Stoic terms, isn't how much you can endure without breaking. It's how well you can preserve your inner order while life applies pressure. When that order is overwhelmed, exhaustion follows. Not because you're weak, but because you've been stretched without recovery. Modern life makes this worse. You're expected to be productive at work, emotionally available at home, informed about everything happening in the world, responsive on your phone, improving yourself constantly, and staying positive while doing it. There's no clear stopping point, no natural boundary that says, enough for today, so your nervous system never fully shuts down. You might sit on the couch, but your mind is still working. You might sleep, but your thoughts are still negotiating tomorrow. You might take a break, but guilt follows you into it. This is not rest. This is survival mode. The Stoics would call this a loss of internal sovereignty, when your attention and energy are owned by everything except what you actually control. And when sovereignty is lost, fatigue isn't a flaw, it's a signal that something needs to be simplified. Not optimized, not hacked, simplified. Most people respond to exhaustion by trying to do more efficiently. Better schedules, new routines, stronger motivation. But when overload is the problem, adding structure without subtraction only tightens the knot. Stoicism offers a quieter response. Instead of asking, how can I do more? It asks, what can I release without collapsing my life? That question alone can change how you breathe. Because here's the truth most people never hear. You are allowed to operate at a reduced capacity without being a failure. Seasons of contraction are not defects. They are part of any resilient system, including nature, including you. Marcus Aurelius wrote about withdrawing into oneself not as escape, but as maintenance. He understood that clarity doesn't come from forcing forward motion when the mind is overloaded. It comes from stepping back long enough to restore order. That means, for now, you don't need a grand comeback. You don't need to rediscover passion. You don't need to fix your entire life. You need margin. Margin to think without urgency. Margin to exist without performing. Margin to do less, deliberately. A Stoic response to mental overload starts with one quiet act: refusing to label exhaustion as a character flaw. The moment you stop calling yourself lazy, something loosens. Shame releases its grip, and with it, a bit of energy returns, not to act, but to stabilize. Today, your task is not improving. It's containment. Containment means choosing a smaller field of responsibility and guarding it. 1 or 2 essential actions, one honest conversation, one boundary that reduces noise. Everything else can wait without meaning you've given up. Because you are not broken, you are overloaded. And overload is not solved by force. It's solved by subtraction, clarity, and patience. This is not the end of your drive. It's the moment you stop draining it unnecessarily. And from that place, slowly, quietly, strength returns. 2. Stop fighting. The fatigue. When you feel exhausted, your first instinct is probably to fight it. You tell yourself to push harder, to drink more coffee, to force discipline, to get back on track. You treat fatigue like an enemy, something to overpower, suppress, or outrun. And for a short time, that strategy might work. You can squeeze out another week, another deadline, another obligation. But every time you do, the tiredness doesn't disappear. It goes deeper. Fatigue that is fought does not fade. It hardens. Most people don't burn out because they rest too much. They burn out because they refuse to listen when their mind and body ask for a different rhythm. They interpret fatigue as weakness, so they attack it with pressure. And pressure, applied long enough, always breaks something. Stoic philosophy takes a radically different approach. The Stoics did not believe that strength meant constant resistance. They understood something modern culture often forgets. Not every signal is a threat. Some signals are guidance. Fatigue is one of them. Marcus Aurelius wrote about acting in accordance with nature, not fighting it. Nature includes effort, yes, but it also includes withdrawal, recovery, and pause. Even the strongest systems in nature cycle between expansion and rest. When humans ignore this, they don't become stronger. They become brittle. Fighting fatigue creates a specific kind of inner tension. You're tired, but you refuse to be tired. You're depleted, but you demand output. You're overwhelmed, but you keep adding weight. This internal conflict is more draining than the original exhaustion. And it turns tiredness into frustration, frustration into self-judgment, and self-judgment into shame. Soon, you're not just tired. You're angry at yourself for being tired. The Stoics would say this is unnecessary suffering. Fatigue itself is neutral. The war you declare against it is what hurts. There is a quiet power in stopping that war. Stopping does not mean giving up on your life. It does not mean abandoning responsibility. It means changing your relationship to the state you're in. Instead of saying, "I shouldn't feel this way," you say, "This is how I feel." Now, what does wisdom require? That shift alone reduces tension. Epictetus taught that we suffer not from events, but from our judgments about them. Fatigue becomes unbearable when you label it as failure. When you see it instead as information, it becomes manageable. And information about your limits, information about your pace, information about what needs to change. When you stop fighting fatigue, something surprising happens. It softens, not instantly, not dramatically, but subtly. The body relaxes. The mind loosens its grip. Energy that was being wasted on resistance becomes available for clarity. This is why rest that comes with guilt doesn't restore you. You're still fighting. True rest begins when you allow yourself to be where you are without self-attack. Stoicism does not encourage indulgence, but it does encourage alignment. Acting against your current capacity is misaligned. Acting with it is discipline of a higher order. That discipline looks quiet. It might mean slowing your pace instead of quitting. It might mean doing one task fully instead of 10. Poorly. It might mean choosing rest before collapse forces it. This is not a weakness. This is command. A Stoic warrior knows when to lower the sword, not because the battle is lost, but because constant tension dulls the blade. You don't sharpen steel by striking endlessly. You sharpen it by knowing when to stop. Fighting fatigue keeps you stuck in reaction. Accepting it puts you back in choice. And choice is where power lives. Today, you don't need to conquer your exhaustion. You need to stop turning it into an enemy. Name it, acknowledge it, adjust your demands to match reality. This does not shrink your life. It preserves it. Because fatigue is not a sign that you're failing. It's a sign that you've been enduring without recalibration. Stop fighting it. Not to surrender, but to recover your balance. From balance, action becomes possible again. From resistance, only depletion follows. The Stoics knew this well. Endurance is not endless strain. It is the art of lasting. 3. Detach from outcomes, or you'll burn forever. There is a quiet reason so many capable, disciplined people feel constantly exhausted, even when they are doing everything right. It isn't the workload. It's the attachment. Not attachment to people, but attachment to outcomes. You work, but you don't just work. You need the work to prove something. You try, but you don't just try. You need the effort to pay off. You show up, but you don't just show up. You wait for validation, results, recognition, or relief. Every action becomes a test of your worth. This is where fatigue becomes chronic. The Stoics were precise about this. They understood that effort and outcome live in different domains. One belongs to you, the other does not. And confusing the two turns life into a constant emotional gamble. And gambling with your peace always ends the same way. Epictetus drew a clear line. You are responsible for your actions, not their results. That idea sounds simple, but living against it is one of the fastest ways to burn out. When your sense of value is tied to outcomes, rest becomes impossible. If you rest, you feel guilty. If results are slow, you feel anxious. If outcomes disappoint, you feel defeated. Even if your effort was honest. Your nervous system never relaxes because it's always waiting for a verdict. This is not ambition, it's self-surveillance. You monitor your progress, compare yourself to others, measure yourself against expectations that keep moving. Even moments of success don't last because the next outcome is already looming. Satisfaction becomes temporary. Pressure becomes permanent. The Stoics saw this as a loss of inner freedom. Marcus Aurelius warned against letting external results dictate your internal state. Not because outcomes don't matter, but because letting them control you hands your peace to forces you cannot command. Think about how much energy is wasted here. Energy spent worrying about what will happen. Energy spent replaying what already did. Energy spent calculating how this moment will look later. None of this improves the outcome. All of it drains you. Detaching from outcomes does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop negotiating your self-worth with forces outside your control. It means you return effort to its proper place, as an expression of character, not a transaction for approval. Stoic effort is clean. It is given without demand. You act because it is right. You prepare because it is wise. You persist because it aligns with who you choose to be. The outcome becomes secondary. This shift is not easy because modern culture trains the opposite reflex. You are taught to chase metrics, milestones, applause, and visible success. You are encouraged to evaluate yourself constantly. And exhaustion is the price of that constant evaluation. Detachment interrupts this cycle. When you detach from outcomes, effort becomes lighter. You still work hard, but you don't drag anxiety behind every action. You still care, but your nervous system is no longer braced for judgment. For the first time in a long while, your actions stop asking, "Will this be enough?" They simply ask, "Is this mine to do?" That question restores energy. Because when you focus only on what is yours to control, your preparation, your honesty, your discipline, you remove the emotional tax that comes from trying to control everything else. The Stoics called this returning to your proper sphere. And inside that sphere, peace is possible. You may still face setbacks. You may still experience loss. You may still feel disappointment, but you won't collapse under them because your identity is no longer fused to the outcome. You did your part. The rest was never yours to command. This is how endurance is built, not by forcing optimism, not by suppressing desire, but by refusing to let outcomes decide your worth. Today, consider where your exhaustion is coming from. Is it truly the effort, or the invisible contract you've made with results? Break that contract. Do what is required. Release what is not. Let outcomes land where they may. If you don't, you will keep burning energy trying to control what was never in your hands. The Stoics understood this clearly. Freedom begins the moment effort is separated from reward, and from that freedom, strength lasts. 4. You don't need motivation. You need stillness. When exhaustion sets in, most people go looking for motivation. They search for a speech, a quote, a video, a surge of energy that will lift them out of heaviness and push them forward again. Motivation feels like the solution because it promises movement. It promises escape from stagnation. But when you are deeply tired, motivation doesn't heal you. It overstimulates you. Motivation is a spark. Stillness is a reset. The Stoics understood this distinction long before modern psychology gave it names. They knew that a mind constantly pushed forward eventually loses its ability to see clearly. When clarity is gone, effort becomes chaotic, and chaos drains energy faster than hard work ever could. Stillness is not doing nothing because you've given up. It is doing nothing on purpose. Marcus Aurelius wrote that you can retreat into yourself at any moment, not to hide, but to recover your center. That inner retreat is not passive. It is an active return to order. Modern life leaves almost no room for this. Your attention is pulled outward all day. Notifications demand response. Opinions demand reaction. Information demands processing. Even when you stop moving, your mind keeps running. You call this rest, but it isn't. It's mental motion without direction, and over time, it exhausts you more than action. Stillness interrupts that loop. When you sit without consuming, without reacting, without planning the next move, your nervous system begins to downshift. The constant low-level alertness fades. Breathing deepens. Thoughts slow. For the first time, you are not being pulled by something external. This is why motivation can feel harmful when you're already drained. It pushes energy outward when what you need is consolidation. It tells you to rise when your system is asking to settle. Stoicism does not reject action. It rejects restless action. The Stoics believe that right action comes from a steady mind, and steadiness cannot be forced. It must be allowed. Stillness is how you allow it. This doesn't mean long retreats or dramatic silence. It means brief, intentional pauses where you stop asking life to give you something and simply observe what is already happening inside you. 3 minutes of true stillness can restore more clarity than an hour of frantic motivation. In stillness, you notice things you've been overriding: tension in your chest, shallow breathing, a background hum of anxiety you've normalized. Not to judge them, just to see them. Epictetus taught that we gain freedom by observing our impressions before reacting to them. Stillness is where that observation becomes possible. Without it, you are always responding after the fact, always slightly behind yourself. This is why exhaustion feels endless. You never fully return to the present. Your mind is always one step ahead, bracing for what's next. Stillness brings you back, not to comfort, to clarity. From clarity, you begin to see what actually matters and what has been consuming you unnecessarily. You realize how many demands you've accepted without question, how many expectations you've internalized without choosing. Motivation blinds you to this. Stillness reveals it, and revelation is the beginning of change. The Stoics practiced this through daily reflection, silence, and deliberate withdrawal from noise. Not because they feared life, but because they respected the limits of the mind. They knew that even a strong instrument dulls without rest. You don't need to feel inspired right now. You don't need to feel driven. You need space. Space to let your mind settle. Space to let your emotions surface without being managed. Space to exist without a task attached to your worth. This is not laziness. This is recalibration. When stillness becomes part of your life, action changes its quality. You act less, but more precisely. You speak less, but with more weight. You choose better because you are no longer rushing away from discomfort. Today, don't ask yourself how to get motivated. Ask yourself where you can be still without distraction, even briefly. Sit, breathe, do nothing on purpose. Because in that quiet, something important happens. You stop leaking energy, and when energy stops leaking, strength begins to return, not loudly, but steadily. The Stoics understood this well. Stillness is not the absence of power, it is where power gathers. 5. Reduce life to what actually matters. When you are exhausted, complexity becomes unbearable. Tasks that once felt manageable start to feel overwhelming. Decisions drain you. Small problems feel heavier than they should. This isn't because life has suddenly become impossible. It's because you're carrying too much that no longer deserves your energy. Exhaustion is often a sign of excess. Not excess effort, but excess roles, excess obligations, excess noise, excess expectations. The Stoics believe that peace comes not from adding more, but from removing what is unnecessary. Seneca wrote about how much of life is spent on things that do not deserve our time, yet quietly consume it anyway. When energy is low, this truth becomes impossible to ignore. Reduction is not loss, it is return. Modern culture equates fullness with success. Want a full schedule, a full inbox, a full identity made of many titles and responsibilities. But fullness without meaning leads to fragmentation. Your attention gets pulled in too many directions, and nothing receives your full presence. Stoicism challenges this directly. It asks a simple but uncomfortable question. What actually matters? And what are you carrying out of habit, fear, or obligation? When you are tired, you don't need to manage everything better. You need to decide what deserves to remain. Everything else becomes optional, even if the world disagrees. This is where many people resist. They fear that reducing their life means becoming smaller, less relevant, less valuable. But the opposite is true. When you remove what is unnecessary, what remains gains weight. Your actions become intentional instead of reactive. Your energy stops being diluted. The Stoics practiced voluntary simplicity not as deprivation, but as clarity. They understood that excess creates dependency, and dependency creates anxiety. When you need many things to feel okay, exhaustion follows naturally. Reducing life starts internally. It means reducing mental clutter, reducing the number of problems you rehearse, reducing the future scenarios you keep alive in your mind. Most of what exhausts you is not happening now, it's happening in thought. The Stoics trained themselves to return repeatedly to the present moment, not as a spiritual escape, but as a practical discipline. What is required right now? Not tomorrow. Not next month. Now. When you answer that honestly, the list is usually short. Eat. Work on one necessary task. Rest. Speak to one person. Sleep. Everything else can wait without your life falling apart. Reducing life also means reducing roles. You don't need to be everything to everyone at the same time. The Stoics warned against scattering the self across too many identities. When you play too many roles, you lose the sense of who you are beneath them. Ask yourself quietly, which roles are essential? And which ones are draining me without giving anything back? You're allowed to step back without making an announcement. You're allowed to respond slower. You're allowed to be less available. None of this requires justification. Reduction is an act of self-respect. It also means reducing expectations of yourself. Many people exhaust themselves trying to live up to an internal standard that no longer fits their current season. Stoicism teaches adaptability, not rigid self-demand. What was possible in one phase of your life may not be wise in another. Strength is not insisting on the same output forever. Strength is adjusting without self-contempt. When you reduce life to what matters, something surprising happens. Relief appears, not because everything is solved, but because nothing extra is being carried. You feel lighter without becoming careless. Focus returns without forcing it. This is how the Stoics conserved energy. They chose fewer battles, fewer attachments, fewer unnecessary concerns, and in doing so, they became harder to exhaust. Today, you don't need to simplify your entire life. That would be overwhelming. You only need to remove one thing that no longer deserves your energy. One obligation, one expectation, one source of noise. Let that be enough. Because clarity is not created by doing more, it is created by carrying less. The Stoics understood this deeply. A life reduced to what matters is not smaller, it is stronger. 6. This phase is not the end. When exhaustion lasts longer than expected, the mind starts telling a dangerous story. This is who I am now. I'll never get my energy back. I've lost something permanently. These thoughts feel convincing because fatigue distorts perspective. When you're tired, everything looks final. Temporary states feel permanent. Slow seasons feel like failure. But the Stoics were clear about one thing. No state lasts forever, especially not the ones that feel unbearable. They understood life as movement, not constant forward motion, but cycles. Expansion and contraction, effort and withdrawal, action and rest. Marcus Aurelius wrote repeatedly about nature's rhythm. Fields lie below. Trees shed leaves. Even the strongest systems retreat before they renew. So humans are no different, except we often judge ourselves for what nature allows without apology. Exhaustion is not an ending, it is a transition. But transitions feel unsettling because they strip away certainty. When your old pace no longer works, but the new one hasn't emerged yet, you exist in a kind of in-between. This space is uncomfortable. It offers no immediate reward, and that's why many people panic inside it. They rush to escape it. They try to force momentum. They label the phase as regression. Stoicism teaches the opposite response. It teaches patience with the process. The Stoics believe that resistance to the present moment multiplies suffering. When you argue with the phase you're in, you turn a natural contraction into an identity crisis. You start measuring yourself against a version of you that no longer fits. So this is where unnecessary pain begins. You're not failing because you cannot operate at your previous speed. You are adjusting, and adjustment requires time, not judgment. Epictetus taught that wisdom begins when you stop demanding that reality conform to your preferences. This applies not only to external events, but to your internal state. Fatigue is part of your reality right now. Fighting its existence only deepens its grip. Acceptance is not resignation, it is alignment. When you accept that this phase is happening, you stop draining energy in denial. That energy becomes available for something more useful. Observation. You begin to notice what this phase is asking of you. Perhaps it's asking you to slow. Perhaps it's asking you to change direction. Perhaps it's asking you to let go of an identity built on constant output. For none of these are punishments. They are corrections. The Stoics believe that every difficulty contains an instruction, not a motivational lesson, but a practical one. Exhaustion teaches you where your life has lost balance. It reveals where you've been overreaching or ignoring limits. Seen this way, fatigue becomes meaningful. Not pleasant, but purposeful. This perspective changes how you relate to time. Instead of asking, "When will this end?" you ask, "What is required of me while I'm here?" That shift brings calm. It grounds you in the present instead of projecting despair into the future. And the future is where fatigue loves to exaggerate. It whispers permanence. It whispers decline. It whispers loss. The Stoics trained themselves to resist these projections. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that all states pass. Pain passes. Ease passes. Even strength passes. Clinging to any state creates suffering. Your energy will return, not necessarily in the same form, not on your preferred schedule, but it will return. Life does not remain contracted forever, but renewal only happens when contraction is allowed to complete its work. You cannot rush a season without damaging what follows. Today, your task is not to escape this phase. It is to stop misinterpreting it. This is not the end of your drive, not the end of your usefulness, not the end of your purpose. It is a pause with direction. If you treat it with patience, it will give you clarity. If you treat it with respect, it will restore your strength. If you treat it as an enemy, it will linger longer than necessary. The Stoics knew this truth well. What feels like an ending is often a reordering. And reordering is how life prepares you for what comes next. If you take one thing from this video, let it be this. Your exhaustion is not a personal failure. You are not lazy, broken, or losing your strength. You are overloaded, overextended, and overdue for realignment. Stoic philosophy reminds us that fatigue is not something to fight, but something to understand. You've seen that pushing harder only deepens burnout, that attaching your worth to outcomes drains your energy, that motivation cannot save you when what you need is stillness, and that life becomes lighter when you reduce it to what truly matters. Most importantly, you've learned that this phase you're in is not the end. It's a necessary pause before renewal. Now comes the practice. Today, do one Stoic thing. Just one. Release one unnecessary demand. Sit in stillness for a few quiet minutes. Detach your effort from the result. Simplify one part of your day. Small, deliberate actions are how strength returns. Thank you for spending this time with me. If this video helped you feel understood or steadier, let it be a reminder that you're not alone in this struggle. If you found value here, consider supporting the channel and sharing your thoughts in the comments. Take care of your inner order. Stand steady, and I'll see you in the next video.